The Atari 7800 is growing in popularity year after year. The demand for the videos on the console and the games is really high, because whenever I give my viewers a choice, they usually lean towards the Pro system. And it's in no small part thanks to the homebrew developers that are proving the console's worth all these years after its retail life. From the graphically impressive Ricky and Vicky to the incredibly well-programmed gems from the GOAT himself, Robert DeCrescenzo, and all the great games and people in between, the 7800 finally appears to be getting its due. So much so that Atari had to bring it back for another run. And I can't be anything but grateful for that. But because of the popularity, more games are coming out than ever before. And because of that, not all of them are getting their time in the spotlight. So today, I want to highlight some of my favorite lesser-known Atari 7800 homebrew, and finally give them their just dues. Some of these can be found on certain Atari-based forums. Some of these games can be found with longtime Atari retailers, and others are long gone. But if you get creative with Google, almost all of them can still be found and played. So without any more delay, allow me to recommend to you 5 lesser-known Atari 7800 homebrew for you to try. The Atari 2600 connection has a long storied history in the community, and I need to cover it on its own. It was a newsletter from the final days of the Atari 2600 and 7800's retail life, and it lasted all the way to the 2000s. And you can still pick up these Atari 2600 connection newsletters from eBay. I personally love them because they are a look into what the hobby was before the internet and before AtariAge. And it goes on even well after the creation of those things, or the rising popularity of them. And I was surprised at how much information they covered in the newsletter that's still relevant today. From the amazing games and where to find them, to the collector's lists, news, and information on fan projects, they are just a great look back to the glory days. And, well, if you ask me, these old newsletters are just the best. But we aren't here to talk about the old 2600 Connection newsletter, because today, the brand is connected to a sort of online blog and an indie developer. And one game that was available for a brief time was the Atari 7800 version of GoSub 2. It doesn't appear to be on their website today, unfortunately, but the 2600 version and others are still there and available. But the 7800 game was pretty neat and very affordable at somewhere around $30. In it, you play the role of a submarine that must traverse mazes and avoid enemies as you find your way to the treasure. Things ramp up in difficulty as you would expect. The mazes become more complex, and this is an issue because you can't touch the sides. You're also chased by a relentless octopus, which you can destroy with your missile, but lining up your shot while moving through the deadly maze is harder than you might think. And then he just comes back anyway. The whole thing becomes frantic at times, and it's just a lot of fun for such a simple idea and game. GoSub 2 controls well, it looks fine, and the music, oh god, the music. It's the most addictive earworm I've ever heard from the Atari 7800 TI-A chip, I swear. I'll be hearing this song for days after shutting off the console. It's fantastic. I hope that GoSub 2, specifically for the Atari 7800, becomes available again sometime soon. Because, even though it's simple, it's a fun little diversion and a cool game to own. Time Salvo is a game that needs to be talked about a lot more than it is. Nobody seems to pay much mind to this title, and that's a crime. Now, I believe that Time Salvo is inspired by another game, possibly from the computers of old, but I personally don't care. I love having another good game to play with my retro Game Boy's twin-stick controller. In Time Salvo, you take control of an odd little person who must rescue other odd-looking people from an invasion of sorts. The enemies will line up along the screen while you work through a sort of grid. One stick will shoot, and the other stick will move your character, as you would expect in a twin-stick game. It can also be played with just a single controller, and there's even Atari Vox compatibility if you want to hear some voices through some speakers, but come on, this game is a twin-stick shooter. Playing it with anything other than 2 sticks is heresy. As the enemies start to enter the playfield, they will wander about, randomly shooting at you and moving faster and faster in your character's direction. Bars will fill up inside the rectangles within the playfield, and once they do, civilians will enter the play area for you to rescue. But beware, if they're all killed, and you don't manage to save at least one, you will encounter the wrath of a large foe who will ultimately be your end. Time Salvo is a ton of fun, and it has a few Easter eggs and secrets that aren't too difficult to find. And boy, are they ever fun when you finally discover the method to unlock them. Time Salvo is the only AtariAge proper release on this list, and it can still be had from the AtariAge store for about $35 if you want car only, and $50 if you want a complete box version with a manual. And it's one of the best games on the store, hands down, at least in my opinion. If you like Robotron 2084, so much so that you bought a twin-stick controller, then do yourself a favor and pick up Time Salvo. Because it's just as good as that game, just as fun as that game, and is an overlooked gem that I hope doesn't get overlooked anymore. I recently did a YouTube short on Sick Pickles, which is an awesome fast food style game for the Atari 7800. The game was done by SIO2, but Alpha Race might be his best game ever on the 7800. Alpha Race is a homebrew version of the classic Omega Race, and it retains all the challenge while including Brex Brixit's signature style. There's another Omega Race style game available for the Pro system, but this one is the one to grab if you want the best the system has to offer. In Alpha Race, you move around a course, attempting to clear all the enemies in order to enter a portal and move on to the next level. Once the portal appears, an enemy will be on screen and start laying landmines all over. So you need to be skilled with the thrust-based controls in order to make it to the portal safely. And it's the really unique control method that makes this game so challenging, because otherwise, this simple idea would probably be way too easy. I find Alpha Race, and by extension Omega Race, to be incredibly difficult and challenging, and I simply marvel at players who can play it for more than a few minutes without having to restart. But the best part of any SIO2 game is the options that he includes. He always includes a large menu with lots of options, and it makes customizing the experience to your liking very doable. You can change the colors of literally everything. You can turn on warp fields, change the difficulty, and even adjust the control method for the game. And this will give you a chance to play for a little longer without dying. Possibly. Alpha Race is yet another game that shows the talent of this developer, who seems to have stepped away from the community, and I really wish he would have stuck with it. Because this game is stellar, and I would have loved to have seen what SIO2, aka Brex Brixit, could have done with a little more time and a little more experience under his belt. When Falling Leaves came out on the Atari 7800, I almost did a video on it titled, Falling Leaves reminds me of why I love the Atari homebrew scene. But that title was a little wordy, so I just gave up on the video. But in all seriousness, this cartridge is a collection of simple games in a charming and creative package that I just adore. This is not a homebrew cart made to sell for profit, although it was sold. No, it was a cart that was crafted out of love for the hobby, with every effort made to show how much respect and care that Gambler and Carey have for the hobby. And I feel that the cost that they charged was simply to cover the production. And so, you could get your Falling Leaves cart in the shape of a dragon or a pirate, which was felt glued to the cartridge, for a very small price. And I love these guys for it. Now the games probably won't be anything special on their own, but there's plenty of fun to be had here when they're all combined together. There's 8 games in total on the cartridge, including Easter, which is a solitaire game, and in my opinion, every console needs a card game. There's Pac Nester, which is a fun and creative Miss Pac-Man hack that uses different sprites. There's Star Wars 7800, which is a Xevious hack that changes some sprites to be that of the Millennium Falcon and such. You have Drunk Witch, a game that features an Elvira lookalike who's doing a mixology podcast, so you must help her mix drinks that are actually good tasting. You also have 3 text adventures in the form of Adventureland, Merlane E. Jagfest, and Pirates Cove. And finally, you get Election Breakout, which is a politics-themed breakout title that's paddle compatible. This collection of games, text adventures, and hacks from Gambler and Carey really remind me of the simpler times in the hobby, when it was just cool to have new games to play on our favorite Atari console. The ideas are wild, the games are even wilder, and the execution is nothing but joy and love for the hobby, wrapped in felt and lovingly shipped to the fans. If you can grab Falling Leaves, then I recommend you do so, and get a taste of the simpler times from the Atari 7800 homebrew scene. Just head over to the AtariAge forums and ask Gambler and Carey about it if you're interested. My last hidden gem comes from Video61 Atari sales, and boy, do these guys have some talent. Their games are often hidden away from the rest of the community, because when you browse their website, there is no cart system. You simply find the game or homebrew that you want, and place an email to get your order rolling. Now, I've done business with Lance and Video61 for years, and games like Venture make me so happy that I do so. Venture is a somewhat early homebrew from Peter and the crew over there at Video61. It's an update to the original game with a lot of additional features, monsters, and levels added in. You would get everything that you expect from Venture, plus some Atari 7800 exclusive levels, plus the levels that were previously added to the Atari 8-bit release. So all in all, you get 2 additional floors, each with 4 new levels, for a total of 8. And Peter really seems to understand Venture, because these levels blend in so well with the originals that I bet new fans won't be able to tell which is which. I used to love Venture on the Atari 2600 because it felt like an adventure game, the kind I always wanted to see brought to the Pro system. But after playing this Atari 7800 update, I just can't go back to the 2600 version. This one just blows it out of the water in every way. In Venture, you play as Winky, and yes, that's his name, who is entering a dungeon in order to collect treasure for fortune and fame. But to do so, he must avoid the invincible hallway monsters and make his way into the treasure rooms. But these treasure rooms are by no means safe. They house goblins, witches, demons, and traps, who all attempt to protect their treasure from Winky. Once you clear a room, it becomes solid, and then you try to travel to the next room while avoiding the hectic hallway monsters. It's a really solid game that was brought home beautifully by Video61, and to this day, it's still one of their all-time best homebrew titles. Robot Holocaust and Animal Keeper are really good as well, but Venture is such a classic that I keep coming back to it for more. And again, Peter's additions are purely brilliant. If you're on the edge about Video61, then I give you my word, they are safe to do business with. Just head over there, shoot him a message, and grab this incredible homebrew for about $40 with free shipping to the United States. And there you have it, 5 Atari 7800 homebrew games that don't get a whole lot of love, online and on YouTube. Each of them hold a special place in my mind when it comes to the hobby, and I think they could be favorites of yours as well. If you want a game with a ton of replay value, then I recommend either Time Salvo or Venture. If you want something that's a little different but loaded with charm, then try to track down Falling Leaves or GoSub 2. Or, if you're looking for something to really test your skills, then look no further than Alpha Race. These games all deserve to be played, and the devs deserve recognition for their hard work. You've all heard my suggestions for 5 lesser known homebrew to find and play on the Pro system, so now I want to hear from all of you. Do you agree with my picks for this list? If not, which games do you think I should have included, and why? I'd love to hear your opinion on all this and more in the comments down below. And please, leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe if you haven't already. I cover all things Atari, from the stuff sold in stores to the stuff sold on forums and everything in between. So hit the bell icon to be notified whenever I upload. Okay guys, I've been the 7800 Pro Gamer, a man who is addicted to buying homebrew and fun stuff for my Atari 7800, right here at the Atari Network. And I'd like to thank you all for watching. And until next time, remember to stay classy, Atarians.